Data analysis with Python 0 to Pandas is a practical, beginner-friendly and coding-focused introduction to data analysis. This is a live online course and you can earn a verified certificate of accomplishment by completing this course. If you're interested in learning data science with Python but don't know where to start, then this course is designed just for you. You can learn more and register at 0topandas.com. By the end of this course, you will be able to confidently use the Python programming language and its amazing ecosystem of data science libraries, like NumPy for mathematical and statistical computing, Pandas for data processing and analysis, Matplotlib for creating beautiful visualizations, and much more. You will get a chance to practice and improve your skills with weekly assignments, and you will also work on an end-to-end course project where you will perform data analysis on a large real-world dataset. This is a beginner-friendly course, so you don't need to have any prior knowledge of Python or data science. Some basic programming knowledge will be helpful, but don't worry if you don't know programming. You can learn these concepts with a little extra effort. You will also get access to the course community forum where you can ask questions, join a study group, and share what you're working on during the course. This course is created by Jovian.ml, a sharing and collaboration platform for data science with a worldwide community of tens of thousands of users from more than 150 countries. So register now and invite your friends to join the course at 0topandas.com. I'll see you in the first lecture. I'm your instructor. My name is Akash. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Jovian.ml. And before this, I've worked as a software engineer at Twitter, where I've worked in data engineering and software development. I hold a degree in computer science from IIT Bombay. And in the past, I've also been a world finalist at the ACM ICPC. I have been using Python for the last 12 years. You can find me on Twitter on @Akshanis. Now, a quick overview of the course before we get into it. 0 to Pandas is a coding first introduction to data analysis using Python. We will be talking about data analysis. We will write code, and through code, we will learn whatever mathematical concepts we need. All the material will be available to you, so you can try it out. You will also get some assignments where you can practice these concepts. And if you complete all the assignments and exercises, then you will earn a certificate of accomplishment. So this is what the certificate looks like, the certificate offered by Jovian.ml. Now let's take a look at the course curriculum. Today we are going to talk about Introduction to Programming with Python. We will cover the parts that are necessary to start doing some data analysis. Then we will move on to the NumPy library. NumPy is used for numerical computation in Python. We will see how to perform statistics with NumPy. Next, we will analyze tabular data using Pandas. You can think of it like working with spreadsheets, but instead of the user interface, you will write some code, just a few lines of code, and it is far more powerful than spreadsheets. Then the lecture is dedicated to data visualization with Matplotlib and Seaborn. These are two great libraries for visualization. You can draw different types of graphs, line graphs, bar graphs, heat maps. We will also learn how to use it, when to use it, which type of graph to use. And finally, we will bring all this together to do exploratory data analysis of a real world data set. We will first learn to ask the right questions about the data. We will identify the right tools for the job. Then we will also learn, after doing your analysis, how do you present it? So storytelling and presentation is a very important component that is often overlooked. So we will focus on that. There's a lot of material we will cover, and we will cover it gradually. So don't worry, even if you're at a beginner level, if you just know a little bit of programming, you should still be able to catch up. And there will be weekly assignments. Here you will get to practice your skills and learn by doing. You will also be able to get help from the community. And then there is a course project at the end, something that brings everything together, where you will get to work on an end-to-end project involving a real-world dataset that is picked by you. You will get a chance to apply all the tools and techniques that you've learned in this course. The goal of this course project and this entire course is to create something that you can proudly showcase as your own original work on your professional profile. You have to submit all the weekly assignments, you have to complete the course project, and you have to follow the academic honesty policy, which essentially is no plagiarism. That is, do not take somebody else's work and claim credit for it. Let's get started then. Now the course page is 0topandas.com. This course page contains all the information about the course. You can go through the details here. There are some links here. There's a link to the course community discussion forum. There's a link to frequently asked questions. And then we have the lessons and the assignments. So let's open up lecture 1. So here you will be able to see the video. You can see the code used with this lecture. You can just scroll down and see it, or you can see each mini tutorial on its own page by clicking on these links. So I'm just going to open up the first link. So now what you're looking at is a tutorial, a Jupyter notebook, and we'll cover what that means. Now we need to be able to run the code. So I am going to run the code. So while that starts, when we click run, we take the same code and explanations and everything, and then open it up on an online platform which allows us to execute this code. While that starts, on the lesson page, you will find a link to a discussion forum. So you can just click this link, and that will open up the discussion forum. And this is the place where you can ask questions. So that's how you ask questions. Moving along, I click the run button, and that opened up an interface like this. What you're looking at right now is called the Jupyter interface. So a place where you can write some code, a place where you can execute some code. Jupyter is an IDE, or integrated development environment, and it runs completely on your browser. That's the great thing about it. Because if I zoom out here for a bit, I am looking at this Jupyter notebook running on my browser, but the actual execution of all the code will happen somewhere on this server called hub.mybinder.org. So right now what I'm looking at is the files associated with my project. And the file that you want to open up is called First Steps with Python. Just click the First Steps with Python file, and that will open up for you to see. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to click on the kernel menu and click restart and clear output. What this will do is I've written some code and I've executed it, and there are a lot of outputs of the code. I just want to remove them so that we can execute the code from scratch. I will also just hide the header so that we have a little more space to see things. Now we're ready to go. This is our first step with Python and Jupyter. This will be like a quick Python tutorial, but we will pick up all the important topics that we need to start doing data analysis. While I go through this material, I will leave out some of the things as exercises for you to try out. But there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of explanation here. There's an explanation on how to run the code. So we are running it online. So we use the run button, but you can also run it on your computer locally, and there are some instructions here. The setup is a little bit advanced, so I would recommend skipping it if you are just getting started. Now coming to Jupyter notebooks themselves, this document that we are looking at, it is made up of cells. It is like a stream of cells. So you have cell after cell, and cells can contain explanations. So here I have written some explanation in a cell, or cell can contain some code or some programs written in Python. Now cells can be executed and their outputs can be viewed right within the notebook, which makes it a really powerful platform for experimentation. You just type something and you run that code and see its output, then you change it and try it again, and then you add some explanation using a text cell. So it's great, and we really love Jupyter notebooks. That's why we've built so many things around it. So the first thing that we will do is to start using Python as a calculator. That's the simplest way to use it. And what you can do is you can simply write and execute Python code by adding a code cell within Jupyter. So how do you add a code cell? There are a couple of ways to do it. By the way, what you're looking at here is a code cell, but I'll show you how to create a code cell. So you can click on a cell, so select a particular cell, and this one is a text cell. So then you go insert and insert cell below. So when you do insert cell below, that automatically adds a code cell for you. You can also change the type of this cell. You can change from code to markdown. So markdown is text basically, and then you can type some text. And then what we are going to do is we are going to start running some code cells. So I already have a code cell here. I'm not going to add more. And here are some simple arithmetic expressions that I've written out, 2 plus 3 plus 9. And now to execute this code, what I need to do is to click the run button. So there's a run button here that you can click. You can also click cell, run cells, or there's a nice keyboard shortcut here, which is shift plus enter, and that will execute and give you the output. So that's great. Now we are able to add numbers with Python. Here's a subtraction. Here is a multiplication. For multiplication, we use the star sign. Here is a division, 100 divided by 7. Python automatically converts that into a decimal number, even though these are integers. and you can see that it's about 14.28. Now, if you just want to get the quotient without the decimal part of it, just get an integer, then you use a double division sign here, 100 by 7. And if you want to see the remainder, then you use this percentage or ampersand operator. This gives you the remainder. So the remainder is 2 and the quotient is 14. And we can verify that. We can just take the remainder 2 and we can add it to 14 times 7 and we get 100. So you can combine them as well. Another operator that you might want to learn about is the exponential operator. So this simply does 5 to the power of 3. You can try 5 to the power of 5 and so on. So as you might expect, this is really simple to get started. You write a code cell, you put some code into a code cell and then you execute it and it works. And that is valid Python code. So that's great. And as you might expect, these operators have certain precedence by default, but you can also combine them and you can specify the order in which they need to be evaluated by specifying brackets. For instance, here I've put 2 plus 5 in a bracket. So that gets executed first, then this, and then these two get multiplied. Then that gets divided by 4 to the power of 3. And that's the output. So that's basic arithmetic with Python. These are the operators that are supported: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and exponent. And what you can do as an exercise, if you're new to Python, if you're new to programming, is just open up some word problems. I've given a link to some simple word problems and try to solve them by adding some formulas here and just getting the outputs. So let's now solve a multi-step problem. So here we have a grocery store that sells a bag of ice for $1.25 and makes a 20% profit on each bag. If it sells 500 bags of ice, how much total profit does it make? Okay, a simple arithmetic problem. You may have seen this in school, probably primary school. So how we go about it is we lay out all the information. So the cost of ice bag is 1.25. The profit margin is 20%. That is 20 by 100, 0.2. So the profit per bag is the profit margin times the cost of the ice bag. So then we have this expression, and then the number of bags is 500. And then the total profit then is number of bags times the profit per bag. So finally we end up with this expression. This is the point where you would pick up a calculator, and here we are going to use Python to do it. So the grocery store makes a profit of $125 total. Now this is an okay way to use it, but this is not using the full power of Python. And it's not clear by looking at the code what these numbers represent. So what we can do is we can actually give names to each of these numbers by creating variables. And variables are an interesting concept in a programming language where you can take information and put them into these boxes or containers and then give them a name. These boxes are called variables and the information stored in them is called the variable's value. So here we are now going to create 3 variables. So the cost of ice bag is the first variable. It has the value $1.25. Then we have the profit margin, another variable. It has the value 0.2. And finally, we have the number of bags. This is 500. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that I have used underscores because variables need to be a single word, and you can break out words using underscores in Python. If you do not have this, then you will get an error. So now we have the cost of ice bag. That's great. We have the profit margin. We have the number of bags. Now in the arithmetic operations, we can start using these. By the way, this is called declaring a variable. So you put a variable name and then you put an equal to sign and then you put the value. So now the variable has that value. To check that value, you just type the name of the variable out and then you can see the value. Now we have the profit per bag. Now this is a new variable I'm creating. And to create this variable, I'm actually going to use an expression that depends on other variables. And this is a nice thing where you can start combining these things together and collect a lot of information. So now you have the cost of ice bag. So that's 1.25 times the profit margin. So that becomes our profit per bag. Then we have the total profit. So the total profit is the number of bags times the profit per bag. And now we can check the total profit. It is 125. So already this is much nicer where you go through these few lines and you understand what's really happening here. And the other good thing is now if you change the number of bags, like if you have on a different day, you have a different number of bags, you can simply reuse the values of these variables. You do not have to note them down somewhere else. That's a great thing about programming. One minor thing here, a variable has to first be defined using this assignment operation. if it is not defined yet, for instance, I've not defined a variable called net profit, and you try to access it, then you will get an error. And now don't worry if you get an error in Python, in Jupyter, because normally in a lot of programming languages, when you get an error, you have to stop. But in Jupyter, you do not need to stop. You can actually just go ahead and change something. Let's say the net profit, I just want to assign it a value of 100 and run it again, and everything will work fine. So that's a great way to just fix things, try out different ideas, break things, and then the more you break, the more you learn. So this is good. Now we are able to display the total profit, $125, but it would be nice to show this as a message. And that's what we can do using the print function. Now what's a function? Now a function is a reusable set of instructions. Just as we are writing some code, we are writing some programs here, a lot of programs have already been written for the common things that you might want to do. And Python provides a lot of built-in functions. The print function is what we're going to see. And it also allows us to define our own functions. So here now we have the print function, and the way to use a function is to type the name of the function, then open a bracket and then give it some inputs. So here we are giving it a first input. This is some text in English that we want it to print. One important thing to note here is that when we're giving it some text in English anywhere in Python, we need to use quotations, because otherwise Python tries to interpret this as code. But obviously there is nothing inbuilt in Python called glossary. So this will give you an error. And that is why we have quotations around anything written in English. That's the first input to print. So we're saying that print this, and then we give it a comma, and then we also print the value inside the total profit variable. All right. And that's the print function. So now that prints out the grocery store makes a total profit of $125. So great, we made good progress already. We've started using variables. We've started using the print function. Now, one thing that you can do here, because all of these code cells so far, we've just been writing a single line. It can get a little bit tedious and also a little bit confusing when you have all these different code cells. So Jupyter allows you to write multiple lines of code within a code cell. So what you can do is you can rewrite the solution to the problem that we saw above, and we can use just a single code cell here. So here we are saying that the cost of the ice pack is 1.25, the profit margin is 0.2, and then we are performing the calculation, and then we are displaying the result. And if I run this, you will see that it prints the exact same result. Now, one interesting thing here to note is that I've actually written some words in English, and I said use quotations, but I've not used quotations. That's because this is a comment. So here, what happens is the moment you enter the pound or the hash character, and then maybe give a space after it. So when you enter the hash character inside a code cell, that becomes a comment. That is where you can write something that will be ignored by the Python interpreter. So Python will not evaluate it, but this is information that you want to share with somebody who is going to read the code. For instance, I have shared this notebook with you, and you can now understand by reading this comment what this block of code does. Similarly, blank lines are ignored, and then this comment is ignored as well. This is called documentation. Comments are a great way to just document what you are doing. And there are a couple of ways to define comments. So comments can live at the end of a code statement. Comment can have its own line, or comments can also span multiple lines. And you can try these out. This is an exercise for you to try out. I will not go over it in a lot of detail. The next thing that I want to cover is evaluating conditions in Python. So here I have a few variables, and if I want to check that it has a certain value or not, let's say I want to check if my favorite number is actually equal to 1, then Python has the equal to operator. This is called the equality check. So here you give it something on the left and then something on the right, and it compares the two and returns true, the value true, if they are equal. On the other hand, if the two values are not equal, for instance, my favorite number and my least favorite number are not equal, it returns false. Okay, so there's the equal to operator. And then there are a few of these. So there is the not equal to operator. So this is read as not equals. Then there is the greater than operator. And then there is less than operator. For instance, here is the less than operator, my favorite number less than 10. That's true. And my least favorite number, which is 3, less than my favorite number, which is 1. That is false. Okay. Then we also have a greater than equal to operator and a less than equal to operator. The key thing to note is that they return true or false, which are special keywords in Python. So that's operators. And just like arithmetic operations, the result of a comparison operation can also be stored in a variable. So for instance, here I have the cost of the ice bag is 1.25. And if I check if the cost of the ice bag is greater than 10, I can put that result into is ice bag expensive? And then I can simply print out that result. So you can see that the ice bag is actually not expensive since the value is false. Conditions can be combined. There are three logical operations to combine conditions. One is the AND operation. So A and B holds true only if both A and B are true. Otherwise it's false. Then we have the OR operation. The OR operation A or B holds true if either one or both of A or B are true. And finally you have the NOT operation. So NOT simply takes a condition and then reverses the condition. For instance, my neutral number has the value 3. So this condition is true. And then when you say not, so not true becomes false. So you can play around with this. And what I would suggest, the way you try this out is to just go to File and then go to New Notebook, open up a new Python 3 notebook. Now take that and put that into one half of your screen. And then take the existing notebook and put that into the other half of the screen. And especially if you're new to Python, if you're new to Jupyter, what you should be doing is you should be looking at the code and typing it out yourself. And this is a great way to learn for beginners. Just type out everything. Do not just do a shift enter so that you just run through everything in 20 minutes and you're done. Now take the time to type things out. Take the time to try out experiments. Now you can break things. What happens if you do this? And I've not defined this. This is really the best way to just experience what it is like to write this code. This is how I recommend working on all the notebooks. Start with a blank notebook and just type out the code line by line. All right. So one last thing that I want to cover is that so far I've been typing some code into these code cells and then I've been writing some text here. You can actually edit this text as well. Maybe you need to add some more explanation for yourself. Maybe you want to take notes. So to edit this text, just double click on the text and then you can start editing it. For instance, I just do this as an edit and then I do shift enter again and that changes this text. One of the nice things about the way text is written in Jupyter is that it uses a formatting style called Markdown. So you can see here, this text actually is a header. And then below here, I have a bunch of different headers and then I have a bulleted list and I have a numbered list. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. And it's really easy to create this style like this. Just to organize your notebooks a little better, you can use Markdown. And how do you use that? If I just double click, you can see that all I need to do to make my text bigger is to add a couple of pound characters and a space in a Markdown cell, and that will make my text big. So if you had 1 pound character, that will make a header, and then you can try different sizes of headers with different pound characters. To create a bulleted list, all you need to do is leave a space, line space, and then use the star character and then just write the items that will get converted into a bullet. You can also create a numbered list. You can also create links. This is a way to create a link. You can also include images. This is a way to include an image. And in fact, you can include code examples as well. Now these code examples that are inside the Markdown cells will not be executed. They cannot be executed. So it's more for an explanation or documentation purpose. Let me just run that and show you. So here's an image and here's the code. So Markdown is very simple. It takes 20 minutes to learn it and it's a really nice way to write pretty text. So you can learn the full syntax of Markdown. Here I've linked to a tutorial. So that brings us pretty much to the end of our first Jupyter notebook. So we've learned some Python here, basic arithmetic, logic, conditions. We've learned a little bit about the Jupyter interface. Now, as I said, this notebook is running online on a free service. It's just a website that lets you run Jupyter notebooks online for free. But since it's a free service, it's going to shut down after some time. So your notebooks, if you leave the tab, if you go away from it for 10 minutes or something, then this notebook will shut down. So what you can do is, whether you're running this notebook online or on your local machine, you can save your work from time to your Jovian.ml account. So the same account that you used for logging in, all you need to do is run pip install Jovian. This is a command that will install a Jovian Python module, a Python library. It is what we will need to actually send our notebook, this notebook, to your Jovian account. Then we do import Jovian. Well, that actually imports the library and tells Python that we are now ready to use the library. And finally, there is a function called jovian.commit. So just as the print function, we've written a commit function that will take your notebook and that will put it on your Jovian account so that you don't need to do any other steps. So you just say jovian.commit and then you give it a project name. So you just type project equals, and here I'm just going to say first steps with Python demo. So now we have jovian.commit and project. And when you run this, it will ask you for an API key. So to get the API key, just go to jovian.ml. If you're not logged in, if you're on the website, you can just click sign up or sign in and sign in with Google or GitHub. But once you're logged in, you will see your profile, and on your profile, you will see an API key. So you can copy this API key, just click the button and it will get copied to your clipboard. And then let's come back here and let us just enter the API key. So it'll just show you a bunch of stars. It is hidden. I do not want you to see my API key. But once you press enter, this is then going to take this notebook and then put it online. Now I can just open up this link, the final link that it gives me, and I can shut this down. So there you go, right? Now I'm leaving this site and I'm shutting this down. And now I end up with this page, similar to the page that we started out with. We have the same Jupyter notebook here, and you can actually take this link and then share it online with other people, just as I did with you. And you can see that the notebook is here. You have all of these options. If you want to continue running, you can click run on Binder and continue running. So this is how we use Jovian. And you will be using Jovian to actually work on the assignments and things like that. So that's a quick intro for you. Okay, so we've covered our first steps with Python. Now we're ready to move on to variables and data types. So just click the variables and data types link. Now this is yet another Jupyter notebook. Once again, click the run button, go to run and click run on Binder. Okay, so now we are once again back on Jupyter. Once again, this is running online somewhere, and we can now open up the second notebook, Python variables and data types. Let's just give it a moment to load. There it is. And the first thing you need to do once again is go to kernel, restart and clear output. Okay, you need to do this only if you want to clear out all the outputs that are already calculated. So I just want to restart and clear all the outputs out. And let me just hide the toolbar so that you can see it better. Okay, so variables, and we know already what variables are. They are containers for storing informations, for storing data. And the data stored in a variable is called a value. And this is how you create and access the value of a variable. So you set my favorite color and then you access my favorite color. And a variable is created using this assignment statement that we've already seen. And note that this assignment statement is actually different from the equality comparison operator, which is the equal to operator, which operates on two things on the left and returns to you a value true or false. So this is a common mistake that we often do when we are starting out with programming, unfortunately. You can also define multiple variables on a single line like this, comma separated. So there you see they have the three values, and you can assign the same value to multiple variables by chaining an assignment operation. So for instance, if I write color 6 equals magenta, then I can say color 5 equals that, and then I can say color 4 equals that. So that chains these operations and each of them gets the same value. So that's how you create variables. Now in Python, you can change the value stored in a variable simply by assigning a new value to it. Now if I redefine or reassign the value red to my favorite color, you can see that the value blue has gone away. The value blue is lost and no longer accessible. And now the value has become red. So this is important, that when you reassign a variable, the old value is lost, gone. So be careful. What you can also do is that while reassigning a new value, you can use the old value of the variable as an input to the expression which is used to assign the value. For instance, counter equals 10. And then we are saying counter equals counter plus 1. Now, normally in math, you would cancel these out and this would end up with 0 equals 1. This is not what we can do here because this is assignment. So counter plus 1 becomes 10 plus 1, and that gets put into counter. So counter has the value 11, right? And since this is such a common pattern, whenever you're doing variable equals variable and then operator something, you can also write it like this. So counter equals 10, and now we do counter plus equals 4. That's the same as counter equals counter plus 4. So this is how you create variables. Now, a quick note on naming variables. Variable names can be short, like a single character A, X, Y, or they can be long, like my favorite color, profit margin, the Three Musketeers. But there are a few rules you have to follow while naming Python variables. A variable's name has to start with a letter or the underscore character. It cannot start with a number. A variable name can only contain lowercase and uppercase letters. So A to Z, lowercase or uppercase. It can contain digits except at the first position, and it can contain underscore characters. And then finally, variable names are case sensitive. So a variable with all lowercase is different from a variable with A and V in uppercase, and that is different from a variable. So these are all different variables with different values. Just be aware of that while creating variables. So here are some